Hi, thank you so much, Valerie, for that introduction. Hi, everybody. Thanks to Anya and IDEA for inviting me to participate in this webinar. As was mentioned, my name is Claire Kenny and I'm Policy Assistant with Independent Living Movement Ireland, ILMI. We love our acronyms. In my contribution today, I will first cover a bit about ILMI, explain the historical reasons why disabled people have not participated in climate discussions. I'll give examples of impact that disabled people's lack of involvement has had and how this can be improved. So ILMI is a National Cross Impairment Disabled Persons Organisation, or DPO. Our vision is an Ireland where disabled people have freedom, choice and control over all aspects of their lives and can fully participate in an inclusive society as equals. Our core values, human rights, collective empowerment and social justice reflect our philosophy of independent living, our ambitions for equality and human rights. They underpin our mission, plans, activities in pursuit of it. Our core values are interlinked and seek to embed and engage these values across all of our functions, priorities, processes and practices. As the National Disabled Persons Organisation, we are concerned that failure to treat climate change as a global emergency will have even more significant consequences for people who are pushed to the edges of society and precisely the lives of disabled people nationally and internationally. We recognise and welcome the urgent need to develop measures to reduce our carbon emissions drastically. However, any climate action must not undermine our commitments to include disabled people under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Disabled People, UNCRPD. We appreciate the development of climate action could be transformative. Investment in sustainable housing, effective and efficient transportation systems are key to moving from environmental disaster to a more sustainable future. However, there is urgent need to engage with disabled persons organisations to ensure that any public investment is fully inclusive and that exchequer funds are designed to meet the needs of everyone. Climate change and environmentalism are as much about social justice as it is about correcting the damage we have done to our planet. However, disabled people are often disregarded in this discourse, and decisions of this environmental social justice. We are frequently seen as an afterthought or an energy burden rather than part of a whole societal transformative effect for our shared future. Having introduced ILMI, I would now like to outline some historical reasons why disabled people haven't been part of climate justice conversations. Until recently, discussions about sustainable development rarely included disabled individuals, despite the fact that many disabled people are everyday environmentalists and passionate about combating the damaging effect on our environment. Inclusion goes beyond physical access. Attitudinal, long-held societal beliefs are significant barriers we face as disabled people. In Irish society, when we, as disabled people, are given a rare platform, we are often asked about our impairments, the limitations they impose, the lack of services, and the obstacles to our participation. Our lives are not solely defined by our impairments. We have complex identities shaped by class, gender, sexual identity, family status, and more. We live full and active lives, yet we are constantly subject to tired tropes, the tragic disabled person, or the inspirational hero who overcame their impairment. We are often exploited for charity, but our rightful place as equal members of society who should be consulted on all issues we face is frequently overlooked. The lack of engagement with GPOs about local and national plans to decarbonise Irish society has and will have unintentional impacts on our lives. Nationally and internationally, environmental grassroots organisations have historically been led by non-disabled people who, through a genuine attempt to save the environment, do not take into account those with less resources than themselves. Now that I have explained why we have been excluded from climate justice based on how some people perceive disability, I will provide you with some examples of this. ILMI recognise the need to reduce our carbon footprint by trying to reduce our reliance on cars in towns and cities. However, due to the lack of engagement with disabled persons organisations, as per state commitments under the UNCRPD, some measures are having unintended negative consequences on the lives of disabled people. The deposit return scheme was brought in without meaningful engagement with disabled people. As a result, the, they are inaccessible to many disabled people due to many factors such as the height of the bins. The fact you have to return to the shop might be impossible for some disabled people, but there is no alternative method provided for returning your plastic bottles, yet all disabled people are being charged the deposit fee, which adds to the cost of disability, which, according to the Indicon report published in 2021, the cost can be between 9,000 and 12,000. Looking at measures taken during COVID-19 pandemic, hard-fought gains by disabled people over decades in terms of the safety of pedestrian areas and parking spaces were steadily eroded over that period, where temporary changes in public spaces in some cases have now become into sometimes unwelcome permanency. Disabled people are being denied access to our towns and cities by pavements restricted to our ease of movement due to new allowances permitted for unregulated external dining. Our disabled parking spaces were removed to locations without reference to where and why the original location was a place of most access to facilitate disabled people accessing the towns and city centres. The promotion of floating bus stops, which impede disabled people and people with limited mobility in safely accessing public transport systems, and the promotion of dangerous shared spaces are directly impacting our ability as disabled people to participate with accompanied ease of freedom in society. These examples highlight the significant issues of restricting the mobility of tens of thousands of disabled and older individuals. Such decisions made with good intentions to promote sustainability, yet devoid of our input, have a profoundly negative impact on the lives of disabled people. They also illustrate the complete absence of constructive processes involving disabled individuals and DPOs in Ireland. Furthermore, without mechanisms to engage authentically with genuine DPOs, there is tangible concern that climate change policies will undermine the inclusion of disabled people in society. So, what are examples of good practice models? Disabled people are only now beginning to be actively involved in policy decision-making spaces, including climate implementation of sustainable development goals and active travel. This is progressive and a massive step forward to achieving a more equal and just society. Practices that could be implemented to ensure climate policy and a just transition is achievable. Consult with disabled persons organisations as they have the knowledge and expertise to ensure that your programme is inclusive. There are nuances to impairment that non-disabled people will not understand as this is not their lived experience. We need to move from consultation to co-creation, from passively being asked to participate in consultations where policy has already been decided, towards resourcing disabled people to work together to drive and development of policies, practices and systems. We must move from engaging with disabled people individually to structured engagement with us collectively through our DPOs. Disabled service providers cannot speak on our behalves. Benefits of including different perspectives. By including marginalised groups, you are bringing different perspectives, expertise and experience to the forefront, thus eliminating inadvertent exclusion and ensuring that climate policy does not negatively affect a proportion of society. A bigger pool of expertise. For example, disabled people are natural problem solvers, as we have to live in a sometimes inaccessible world. Thankfully, with more engagement with disabled people and disabled persons organisations, this is changing for the better. Climate policy and initiatives will benefit everyone. For example, the cook curb effect is good for disabled people, but it's also good for parents with buggies and temporarily disabled people. In conclusion, I wanted to introduce ILMI briefly and share some reasons why disabled individuals have been overlooked in decisions regarding climate justice. I have provided examples of how this exclusion manifests and leads to further marginalisation of disabled people and practices that could be implemented to ensure climate policy and a just transition are achievable. The benefits of a just transition are attainable if we collaborate to create more equitable, sustainable and inclusive society. Thanks for listening.